In episode 4, Ruth Langmore has a problem, and it's a good problem to have. She has way too much cash. Doing everything herself with the lazy O, including Darlene's business, is kind of dragging her down. She calls up Jonah because she needs help, and Jonah suggests that she gets somebody to manage it. But Ruth doesn't know who she could possibly get that she could trust, and Jonah suggests get somebody that's too stupid to figure out what's going on. And Ruth has the perfect person in mind. It's Sam. Sam's down on his luck. He's got a gambling addiction. He could absolutely use the extra income, and he is too stupid to know what's going on. But Ruth isn't the only person that has a problem. So does Javi. He's trying to figure out how the FBI had any idea about his gun shipment. It's the third shipment this month that's been broken up by the FBI. Marty tries telling him maybe you just chalk it up to a loss, the price of doing business. And normally Javi would, but what's bugging Javi is the fact that normally these busts are broken up by the DEA. Now they're broken up by the FBI. Javi then remembers that Marty has a contact in the FBI, and he asks for Maya's phone number. Marty's not going to give him Maya's phone number, but he does ensure him that he'll ask her to poke around. The two then drive to the Shaw warehouse to drop off the first shipment of opium. There's one hell of a pissing contest between Javi and the Shaw security guy, Connor. In the end, though, all the opium's there. Connor goes his way. Marty and Javi go theirs. As Marty and Javi are driving back, Marty gets a phone call from Charlotte letting him know that Ruth is at the casino. Ruth was over at the Lazy O when Carrie showed up with a couple other high rollers and demanded that she tag along because they wanted to do some gambling. Ruth did try to explain to Carrie that she's banned and she can't go in, but Carrie said, "We're high rollers. What are they going to do, not let us in?" And he's right. Marty gives the okay to let Ruth go in and gamble. Now back over with the other side of this drug deal. When the drugs are securely in the possession of Shaw, Claire Shaw gets an update. And she's fresh off the podium where her and Wendy announced that they're going to be building the rehab facilities. Wendy did go a little overboard in this, mentioning how this project was so close to her heart because her brother Ben had suffered from addiction problems, which isn't true. But, you don't let the facts get in the way of a great story. When Claire gets the update that the shipment is on its way to the factory, she's very relieved. Marty and Wendy end up meeting up at home that night, and Marty does ask Wendy about the whole Ben situation. Marty thinks it's a terrible idea just to bring up his name in public, but Wendy doesn't want to talk about it. She walks away. The two then head to bed, but no one is sleeping at the Missouri Belle. Ruth is having a blast gambling with Carrie. The only time she actually gets in a bad mood is when she goes to the bar to grab some drinks and she sees Wendy's press conference where she mentions Ben's phantom addiction problems. But as soon as she gets back to the table, she's back to her winning ways and she's back to being in a great mood. Carrie is also having a blast, sneaking away every couple minutes and snorting heroin. Now, I'm not a drug guy. I don't think you're supposed to snort it, but Carrie was told by Ruth that this stuff was so pure and so organic that he could snort it. And sure enough, he's going to town with the nose candy. Problem is, you do too much of that stuff, you end up ODing. That's what happens to Carrie. Just as Carrie is being loaded into the ambulance, that's when Marty and Wendy show up. Ruth is visibly shook by watching her friend OD on her own heroin. And now she has to deal with an interrogation from Wendy Bird. Wendy asks her where Carrie got the heroin. Ruth plays dumb. The three of them start squabbling, and it ends with Marty telling Ruth, "Don't ever come back here again." Ruth then leaves the casino in Carrie's car along with his driver, and they head straight to the Snell farm to let Darlene know about what happened. Darlene starts doing the "I told you so" routine, but that's when Carrie's driver speaks up saying that he'll keep everything under wraps as long as he's compensated for this. Darlene doesn't have time for that. She just straight up shoots him right then and there, dead. This definitely takes Wyatt completely by surprise. Darlene lets Wyatt and Ruth clean up his body, burying it somewhere in the field. So if you think you're having a bad night, Ruth Langmore just watched her friend OD and then had to bury his driver. The next day, though, Wendy and Marty need to clean up this mess because it was their business. Questions are going to be asked. It's also not a great look when you're trying to open up drug facilities and guys are ODing at your place. As Wendy is talking to a journalist on the phone about what happened, she once again brings up Ben's addiction. And it's in front of Marty, who knows that it's not true. He just wants her to shut the hell up at this point. He asks Wendy, "What are you doing?" But the only thing Wendy can say is, "It's good PR." The Birds, though, are not the only people that are going to have to answer for what happened with Carrie Stone. Ruth gets a knock at her door that morning, and it's from the sheriff, also wanting to know because Ruth was with him. And while the sheriff is extremely suspicious of Ruth's motives and what she was doing there, and why a girl that lives in a trailer was with a high roller like Carrie Stone, She can't prove anything, and Ruth isn't talking. The sheriff then heads to the Missouri Belle to get the Birds side of the story. They tell her that they've never had an issue like this. I mean, they've had people smoking weed in the parking lot, but that's about it. The sheriff then asks about the relationship they have with Ruth Langmore. She asks the Birds to confirm that Ruth did in fact work at the Missouri Belle, and they do that. When the sheriff asks them why she no longer works there, the Birds say that she moved on to another opportunity. She now owns the Lazy O. Sheriff once again finds it suspicious that a girl in a trailer has enough money to own the Lazy O, but Marty cleans it up by saying that they paid her well and she probably got a small business loan out of it. Wendy almost screws this whole thing up by telling the sheriff how Ruth wanted to work with her cousin Wyatt, and he's living with Darlene Snell. Possibly Darlene had helped her out with an influx of cash. But Marty gets the story back to Ruth getting a small business loan. This is kind of the final straw for Marty, so when the sheriff leaves, he asks Wendy, "What the hell are you doing? You're pointing her straight to Ruth." Wendy tells him we have no reason to protect her, and Marty reminds Wendy, our son is working for her. If Ruth goes down, he goes down. Wendy looks at Marty and says, maybe that could be the best thing to happen to Jonah. His record will be sealed when he's 18. And that starts a whole fight between Marty and Wendy about the situation with Jonah. But as Marty and Wendy were meeting with the sheriff, Javi was having a meeting of his own. It's not with the sheriff, but instead with a lawyer and the driver who was arrested trying to deliver Javi's guns. Javi wants to get the full story from this guy and what happened because he'd used this guy many times before and he never had an issue. Javi asked the guy, "Did you see a woman wearing an FBI uniform?" And the driver can't remember. It happened pretty quickly and it was dark outside. So Javi looks at the lawyer and says, when you get the body cam footage, which should be made available because of discovery, I want to see it immediately. The next day, Javi gets that body cam footage and he's able to confirm that Maya was indeed at the raid. Now he's freaking out a little bit because he feels like someone tipped off the FBI and he doesn't want to deliver the drugs to Shaw Medical, and they're due to deliver those drugs that day. Marty tries to reassure Javi that this is nothing more than a coincidence, but Javi is not making any more deliveries until he figures out who the mole is. Marty is forced to call up Wendy and tell her about this recent detail, and Wendy just so happens to be out to lunch with Claire. As Wendy is on the phone with Marty, Claire gets the update from Connor about the fact that the shipment isn't arriving. Everybody's kind of on edge at this point. So Wendy tries to call up Omar and have him intervene, but he's not willing to. Wendy tries to explain to Navarro that if he wants to be clean and get out, then he needs all of these dominoes to fall. Navarro, though, doesn't give her an answer and just hangs up. There's now only one place for the Birds to turn to get the opium. It's Ruth and Darlene. Marty Bird goes to Ruth Langmore's trailer, hat in hand, and tells her that he wants to buy all of the heroin off of her. And now that Ruth has lost Carrie, he's not going to buy it after ODing. She's back to being partners with Marty. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. Once again, thank you for checking out this recap.